Okay, so we're going to link this now to our work that we're doing today. So these sentences are going to help you with your writing. Okay, so make sure they're good. So he took a deep breath to steady his nerves. Again, that should say two. I don't know what's happened with my PowerPoint. I'm so sorry. He took a deep breath to steady his nerves. Now, I've needed to think about the different things I've needed to do here. Okay, it doesn't have any adjectives in it. It doesn't have an expanded noun phrase in it. It potentially could do with a fronted adverbial, but definitely needs to make sure that I've got my relative clauses in there, or my relative pronouns, or even have a subordinate clause. Now, it says here, add a subordinate clause. Now, I'm going to see if I can up-level this one. So I actually decided to change it completely. I have added my subordinate clause, but I can make it better than just doing the subordinate clause. So dropping to his knees on the blood-stained ground, he took a deep breath to steady his nerves. Now, I wonder if anyone can spot where my subordinate clause is in that sentence. Yeah, good. It's at the beginning. Dropping to his knees on the blood-stained ground. Now, the reason why I've up-leveled that sentence more is I've actually started it here with a verb opener. So this is a verb opening fronted adverbial that I've got here, okay? So dropping to his knees on the blood-stained ground. So I've got my on, my preposition. I've got my blood-stained, which is an adjective to describe the ground. He took a deep breath to steady his nerves, okay? Simple sentence there. I just added my subordinate clause, okay? So let's have a go at this one here then. The soldier crawled out from behind the wall. So here I need to add another subordinate clause. So I could be thinking, well, should I add it at the beginning or should I add it at the end? And then I need to think, well, is there any way that I can improve this? So I might put one of my subordinate clauses at the beginning. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. So as the destructive battle raged around them like a circus of death, the panic-stricken soldier crawled out from behind the wall. Now let's have a look through this together, okay? Can we see where I've used a subordinate clause on this one? Yeah, so my subordinate clause is here at the beginning. Okay, now I know it's here because I've got my as, and as is one of my subordinating conjunctions. Now I've appropriately punctuated this, like it says, with my comma down here because I've started with my subordinate clause. Okay, now as the destructive battle raged around them, okay, so I've got destructive as my adjective, and I've got like a circus of death. Now, what skill have I used there? I'll give you a clue. We looked at this in yesterday's lesson. I've used a simile. Okay, so I've got around here. I don't think I've highlighted around, but I've got around here. So I've got my preposition. And then I've added a simile, like a circus of death. Now, I've linked it to a circus because circuses can be quite crazy. Lots of things are happening at the time. You know, when you're at a circus, there's like 6 or 7 different things going on all at once. Quite frankly, a battlefield is exactly the same thing. There's lots of people dying left, right, and centre. So I've described it more like being a circus because a circus can be quite chaotic, quite stressful. The panic-stricken soldier crawled out from behind the wall. So not only did I have around and behind, I had both prepositions in that sentence. Okay. So I didn't just add a subordinate clause to that sentence. I've added additional adjectives, and I added a simile and a fronted adverbial. Now I had behind here as my fronted, as my preposition. Okay, and I added an additional one here into my sentence as well. So equally, I was only told to up-level it with one, and I up-leveled it with 4 or 5 different skills. Okay. Now, I've done one last one here for you then for your relative clause. So this time I've got to add a relative clause into my sentence. Okay. Now, usually it's going to go in the middle of my sentence. Okay. So the soldier watched helplessly as his friend died. So I know that my relative clause has got to go somewhere here. The soldier, something, 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 watched helplessly as his friend died. Because I need to be describing the soldier if it's going to be my relative clause. I'm going to use the word who. So I'm going to pick the word who. So my new sentence I wrote was, the grief-stricken soldier, who had known his fallen comrade since he was a child, watched helplessly as the life slowly escaped from his limp body. Okay, as seems to have been deleted off here as well. I think there may be a fault with my PowerPoint today. I apologise. So you can see here, I didn't just add a relative clause, okay, because I'm in year 5. Okay, we write better than that in year 5, so I've added additional skills into my sentence, including that relative clause that asked me to do. So here is my relative clause in the sentence. How do you know that that's a relative clause? Good. So 1, it starts the relative pronoun. How else do we know that it's a relative clause? Good. We've got both of our commas, don't we? So we know it's an embedded clause, okay, because we have our 2 commas, okay, that we have here, okay. So we've got the relative clause, but let's see what else I included in it. So the grief-stricken soldier, we've got a hyphenated adjective there. Okay, so I'm describing that soldier and how he's feeling. Watched helplessly. What type of word is helplessly? Good, it's an adverb, okay, because I'm describing the verb. I'm describing how he watched. He watched it helplessly. Now, I've missed out the word there, as. So as would have been another conjunction, another relative, another subordinated conjunction. Watched helplessly as the life slowly escaped from his limp body. So I've got 2 adverbs in there. So I had adjectives, I had a relative clause, I had two adverbs. I would have had my additional subordinating conjunction in there as well, had I not missed it off here as well. And I've got from, so I've got another preposition. So I have like 5 other skills in that sentence, excluding that relative clause. Okay. Oh, and obviously I have limp. I have my adjectives in there. Okay. So I'm just going to show you the final paragraph that I've written here. Okay. So this is the last part of the paragraph that we need to be looking at. Okay. So we're now writing, obviously he's got shot and everything like that. And we've looked at the horse whispering and everything. So this is going to be the final part of our paragraph. Now, when I said there a second ago with the hoarse voice and the wheezing, you might notice some of these phrases in here. So what I've actually done is I've written that last part of my paragraph that we started on Tuesday, okay? And what I've done is I've added the additional skills in that we learned from yesterday's lesson, okay? This is why I said it's important to make sure you keep your similes in your metaphor work. So let me read to you the next part of our story. So obviously he's watched his friend get shot. Okay, and we've described what was happening to his body using our amplification skills. You know, we were talking about his breathing, talking about his eyes, talking about his body. So now we're going to get to the point where the soldier's going to go over, and this is going to be the final part of what happens to the fallen soldier. So, the soldier knew in his aching gut that the fallen man's wounds were too serious to survive, and he had to do something. Dropping to his knees on the blood-stained ground, he took a deep breath to steady his nerves. As the destructive battle raged around them like a circus of death, the panic-stricken soldier crawled out from behind the wall, whispering promises and words of calm to his fallen friend. He could see the man was fading. The faint hoarse wheezing of his laboured breath sounded like air slowly being released from a deflating balloon. The grief-stricken soldier, who had known his fallen comrade since he was a child, watched helplessly as the life slowly escaped from his limp body. I tried to comfort him. I held him gently as he wept like a child, frightened and confused. I watched him pass as the fire in his eyes slowly extinguished. A solitary tear trickled down his ebony cheek and kissed the unforgiving ground beneath him as he pondered his future. Would there be somebody there to hold his hand when his time came? So let me go through and just point out where I've used the skills, because I want to model this to you today, because a lot of this is going to be you using your metaphors and similes for yesterday and those 3 sets of sentences you've just written today using our relative clauses and subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so here you can see dropping to his knees on the blood-stained ground. Okay, so there I've got my subordinate clause, and I started it like I just did a second ago, started it with a verb opener. And we know about verb openers because we've been doing them all of last week, so I thought I'm going to use that skill. He took a deep breath to steady his nerves as the destructive battle raged around them like a circus of death. So again, I've got another subordinating clause, because I'm starting with my subordinate conjunction, but I've added a simile. Now, I wrote that simile on Tuesday, so I'm not going to sit here and rewrite another one. Okay, half of this that I've written, I did on Tuesday and today, or was it Wednesday? No, it was Wednesday, beg your pardon. Wednesday and today. Okay, so half of this has already been done for me, because I've done it over the last 2 days. The panic-stricken soldier called out from behind, so I've got a preposition in there. And then I've got, he could see the man was fading, and I've used a semicolon in here because I'm expanding on it. It says he could see the man fading, so I'm going to give an example of how he knows that he was fading, how he was dying. So I'm going to talk about his breath. I'm picking up on the senses here. The faint, hoarse wheezing of his laboured breath. So I've got faint, hoarse. I've got my expanded noun phrase. Now I've used the word horse in here, and we should know what that means because we looked at it in reading, and I asked you this yesterday. I'm going to ask you again. What does horse mean? Good. It means to have like a raspy, very rough, very sore voice. Okay. Now we know that because he's wheezing, like I said on Tuesday, because he's wheezing, it's that high-pitched squeal that comes from someone that's got quite shallow breath. And when it's laboured, it means it's hard work. He's struggling to breathe. And I thought, you know what? I did a simile yesterday, so let's add my simile on there. Like air slowly being released from a deflating balloon. Now, why would I not say that it was like air being released from a hairdryer? Okay, because a hairdryer here, the air comes out very hot, it comes out very loud, and it comes out very powerful. That wouldn't be a correct comparison. So you need to make sure that your similes and your metaphors relate perfectly to what it is you're trying to explain. Now, we know it's a simile because I've got the word like. Now, the grief-stricken soldier who had known his fallen comrade since he was a child. Now, I've just written that sentence 2 minutes ago. So why not copy that sentence? I'm going to use my embedded relative clause. It starts with who, and I have both my commas. Now, he watched helplessly as the life slowly escaped his limp body. So now I've got 2 of my adverbs. Okay, so in one sentence, I've got a grief-stricken hyphenated word. I've got my relative embedded clause with my 2 punctuations, and I've got 2 adverbs, and I've got limp. I've got some additional adjectives. Okay, now I tried to comfort him. So I've got a colon. So again, I'm going to expand on this reason as to how it was he tried to comfort him. So he comforted him by holding him gently as he wept like a child. Gently, getting on another adverb. Wept like a child. Okay, now wept means to cry, to sob. Okay, so again, I've got another simile in there. So I've got 3 similes in there that I wrote yesterday that I haven't even had to think about today. I've just copied them in. Frightened and confused. I watched him pass as the fire in his eyes slowly extinguished. Now that was one of the metaphors that I wrote yesterday. I wasn't saying his eyes looked like they had fire in them. I said the fire in his eyes. That's almost that life that's slowly extinguishing. Okay, we've looked at extinguishing before. We know extinguishing means to put something out. Okay, when you extinguish a fire, you put it out. A solitary tear trickled down his ebony cold cheek. So we've got solitary, so 1. Tear trickled. One of my figurative language devices in there as well. I've got my alliteration. That's one we don't think as figurative language. Down his ebony cold cheek. Okay, now I know I'd made the mistake with the ivory, but equally his face is covered in smoke. It's covered in ash. It's covered in mud. So it is going to be very black and very dark, although it's going to be very cold. And kissed the unforgiving ground. Now kissed is personification. Okay, tears don't have lips. They're not going to smooch the ground. Okay, and the unforgiving ground beneath him again is another metaphor, and I've got the word beneath. Okay, so I've got another preposition in there. Now, the last thing I did here is not something that we've done before. It's something that you may not really know about, but I've included a question in here. Does anyone know what type of question it is I've included? Okay, it's called a rhetorical question. So a rhetorical question is when you ask a question but don't expect an answer from it. Okay, so I've started with my modal verb. So modal verb, remember from our spellings, is one of those words that's going to tell us whether something will or won't happen. So would there be someone there to hold his hand when his time came? And obviously there's no answer to that question, so it's a rhetorical question. So there you've got a copy of what my paragraph looks like. You're now going to have a go at writing your own paragraph, okay? So you need to write that final paragraph of your flashback, and you must include the skills we've done yesterday and today. It's not Tuesday, because I don't know what day of the week I think I'm on at the moment. The work we did on Wednesday and today. So you've got your similes, your metaphors, you've got your subordinating conjunctions and your relative pronouns for today, okay? Now you might want to refer back to that work, so you're going to need to go and find that work so that you can just magpie them and put them straight into your writing. Now you must include in your paragraph fronted adverbial, expanded noun phrase, relative clause, adverb, simile, metaphor, and a preposition, okay? You can see how easy it is to get those into a sentence without even thinking about it, okay? For those of you that need to be challenging yourself even further, or anybody else that would like to challenge themselves even further, I want you to include alliterations and personification, and I want you to have a go at seeing if you can expand on one of your clauses using a colon or a dash. Okay, so that's your toolkit for today. Use the work that you've looked at from yesterday. Look at the work you've just done today. If you feel like you need to improve on your sentences, then by all means improve on them. And I want you to write your last final paragraph. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at writing the last 2 or 3 sentences that's going to pull us back out of our flashback. Okay, so have a go at that and we'll see how you get on. All right, good luck, year 5.